There's a switch there. Just flip that on. All right, now we're on live. You see, like a studio when this thing goes on air. So if you want, we're live on channel 23 for those of you that have cable TV at home, and also on YouTube, Facebook. We have our own homepage, and it'll take you there. So, Hafaday Tiro, good morning. Like I mentioned, I am Edmund Villagomez, the Speaker of the House. I know my name's there; it should be up there. But this room is also used for committee meetings, and usually the chairpersons sit up there. Um, is this a social studies class? Oh, NMI history. Wow. Uh, when I was in the eighth grade, we didn't have I didn't get the opportunity to have a NMI history in our agenda. It was later in high school when we did NMI history. Um, I think one of the best ways to get our conversation going and discussions going, and also educating you all on what we do here is we usually go straight into questions and answers. And if you guys want, you can feel free. Um, Vice Speaker, if you want to add anything, I'll just go ahead and explain a little bit of what we do here. I'm pretty sure you all are familiar. We are the legislative branch, historically known as the first branch of government. This is where a lot of the process of bills becoming laws starts. In the House, in the legislature, there are two houses. You're in the House of Representatives. On the other side of this wall is the Senate. There are 20 members in this House. Precinct 1 is usually it's the south side of the island. You guys know of Dandan, Aslitu, San Antonio, Coblerville. You guys familiar with those villages? Yes. So those villages and others compose of precinct 1. There are 6 representatives from precinct 1. Precinct 2. Oh wow. Is that for us or for them? Just kidding. Okay, there you go. Precinct 2 has 2 seats. The villages that compose of Precinct 2 are Chalancanoa, Susupi, parts of Asperdido, Aslito, and Finasisu. And the MHS is in the Susupi area, right? Or would that still be considered Olyai? Yeah, Precinct 2. Yep. And then Precinct 3 is pretty much like the central area of Saipan. This side of the road here is Precinct 4 across Mount Tapochao, Garapan, Puerto Rico, Gualarai, Chinatown, Navy Hill, Chalanquiza. Did I mention Olyai, Saduktasi? And everything in between is Precinct 3. We have 6 seats. Precinct 4 is this side of Capitol Hill, parts of Asteo, Tanapak, and everything north all the way up to the Northern Islands, and they have 2 representatives. Precinct 5 is parts of Asteo as well, Cagman, Papagu, San Vicente, Canatabla. That's pretty much it, right? Asterlahi. Um, and they have 2 representatives. So that, on Saipan alone, we have 18 representatives in the House, and Tinian and Rhoda, they each get 1 seat. In the Senate, it is composed of 9 members. And just like the US Senate, um, they get 2 seats, right, in the Senate, in the US Senate. Here in the CNMI, it's also the same. Saipan and Northern Islands has 3 seats in the Senate. Tinian has 3, and Rhoda has 3 as well. So there are 9 members. There is potential for another 3 seats to open, and that's only if and when about 1,000 people at least can settle and establish themselves up in the Northern Islands, and that's when 3 seats will open. Right now in the House, we are at the cap. The constitutional cap is 20 members. So in order for us to add more representatives, if it's needed, it's going to require a constitutional amendment, which has to be ratified by the people. Are you guys following me? At any time that you have questions, please raise your hands. Like now? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So the differences between the House and the Senate is we each have our own designated authority. Anything that deals with revenue generating bills like taxes, or to impose fines or penalties, or even to move money around in the government, has to start in this chamber, the House of Representatives. The Senate, they have the authority of confirming appointments from the governor. So, like cabinet members, the heads of departments, like the Secretary of Finance, the Secretary of Public Works, the Secretary of Commerce, etc. The governor makes a nomination or an appointment, then they go through the hearing process and the confirmation process through the Senate. Just like in the U.S., when the president has a recommendation for somebody to sit on the bench in the Supreme Court and other high capacity positions, they have to go through the Senate for confirmation in the hearings. We also have a subcategory in the legislature where we deal directly with issues affecting the senatorial district. So Saipan and the Northern Islands, we have what we call SNILD, which is Saipan Northern Islands Legislative Delegation. And that's where we pass bills and look at appropriations affecting that senatorial district. So how many of you have heard of the Shefa program, the scholarship? Not yet. Okay. Maybe when you're getting ready to graduate from high school, it's one of the scholarship opportunities we have here in the CNMI. That is funded through uh, local funds collected through our poker fees and is appropriated through the legislative delegation. Tinian and Rhoda each has their own delegation as well, where just like the SNIL, they deal with the appropriations of their funds collected through the poker fees and other revenue generated locally in their senatorial district. No questions yet? None? Before I move forward, I'd like to introduce Representative Edwin Probst from Precinct 1. He is the chairman of the gaming committee. Yep. Go ahead and clap. You should feel special because we didn't get a round of applause, man. I think it's the color of your shirt. You know, it matches there. Did you go to GCA as well? Oh, okay. Okay. Any questions? If you guys have questions, please feel free. Raise your hands. Ask questions. Don't be shy. Okay. Don't feel bad. Don't feel shy. One of the most important legislations we need to pass every year is the budget bill. The Appropriations Act, that's pretty much the kickstart of the operation of the government to allow us to continue to provide the services to the public as mandated. Um, we do have a deadline to meet to pass that budget bill. That's why it's very important, and that's by midnight of October 1st of every year. In the event that we do not have a budget law by that time, the government goes to a partial shutdown, um, which is, it could be a detriment, um, but essential services still remain open, such as public safety, public health, and public education. Questions? Legal counsel, clerk, Madam Speaker. Oh, and another representative from Precinct 3, Representative Karina Magofnia. Yep. So, any questions? Okay. Ma'am, you think you can elaborate on the questions about the bills, or go ahead? Go ahead. Is this your first time up here at the legislature? All right. After this Q&A, you guys will be taking a tour of the legislature. It's kind of like a maze, but you'll have really proper tour guides to take you around. Go ahead. You want to ask that for the record? There. You gotta just press it once. Yeah.
How do you become a representative?
Thank you. Good question. How do you become a representative? There are requirements to meet. First off, to become a representative, you gotta really want to do this. That's the first one. But after that, you're gonna have to meet certain requirements. Um, to run in the House of Representatives, you have to be at least 21 years old, U.S. Citizen, and a resident here in the CNMI. Um, say if you live in Chalankanoa, you cannot run for a seat in Garapan unless you relocate. But those are all the requirements you have to meet. You run in the precinct that you live in. Um, you sh- your criminal background should be clean. Um, that's another thing. Am I missing anything else? Oh, okay. Education wise, there's no educational requirement. You don't have to get a PhD or a degree, because I think one of the things is they don't want to limit the options for the voters to support who they feel can properly represent them. Um, I know there has been discussions of maybe we should put a requirement that they have to have a certain degree, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that the reason why that's not put in the Constitution or the requirements is because we want to keep that the option pretty open for the people to to choose who they feel can represent them well. If you look back at in history, there are some leaders that you would think are very decorated academically, but they're not. But they've done very well in representing their constituents. And likewise, there are those that are very decorated academically and have come up short in the way they represent their community. So yes, the first thing is to have the passion. I always say it's a calling. I think some of us here in the house, when we were your age or younger, some of us probably weren't thinking like, one day I want to run for governor, or one day I want to run for the House of Representatives. Uh, I think we just stumbled upon that as we continue on in our career, and um, we feel that, or we felt that public service was our calling, and that's when we made the decision to step up and run for office to represent you all. I hope that answers your question, man. Members, if you want to add in, please just let me know. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yes. Yes. Sure. I came here on canoe. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. You're live on YouTube. I was just informed that we have 5,000 viewers. Come on. Yeah, please subscribe to my channel. Ask. Yes. Is it okay if we ask you questions? Okay. No. Huh? You? Yes. Right on. All right. Yeah. But you guys also have like student council, student body, um, like president or and whatnot, right? So, is it at every grade level? Is it school wide, or is it by you know how they have middle school, elementary, and high school? Do they each have their own like student council?
We have for like each class
Oh,
in
okay.
middle school to high school has their own
Oh,
student body,
okay.
but then there's a stuco for the whole
For
school.
each, oh, so for each class, there's a so who is the Stuco rep in this class? There you go. There you go. That explains a lot. Okay. Hmm. 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 Yep. Thank you, Vice, for bringing that up. Yeah, I kind of forgot to mention that we do have a youth congress. It's not as big as it used to be, but it's still pretty active. Yes, sir.
How much do you guys earn?
Uh, no. That's a good question. It's out there publicly. We make 32,000 a year. No, I know at your age you're like, wow, but trust me, as you get older, you'll be like, what? You know. But yeah, 32,000 a year. Not too long ago, we were making 39, and there was some attempts to try to raise that. And one can argue how they went about the formula, and then they went through the court, and the court's like, wrong, cut. So instead of getting an increase, we got a decrease. It is what it is. But yeah, 32,000 a year. You guys want to know how much the governor makes? Okay, 120,000 a year. Yeah, that even for us, we're like, wow, what? Yeah. The lieutenant governor makes 100,000. Yep. The mayors they make 75. Yep. All three islands, all four mayors. Yeah, 75,000. So we were on that boat when the salaries were going to get increased, but somehow we got kicked out. All right. Any other questions? That was a good question, sir. Ma'am, you look like you were going to raise your hand. No? Okay. Up here? Come on, come on. Yeah, there's just press it once.
Is there a specific amount of years you can work here, or
Okay. The good question. I think you're asking how many times we can continue running for office, right? In the House and the Senate, there's no limit. You can run as many times as you want, and you can get elected as many times as you want. Of course, it depends on the people voting, right? The governor, they're only allowed 2 terms. The mayors as well. The AG, unlimited too, right? Yeah. So not too long ago, we created a law that, or was it a initiative, right? Legislative initiative to have our attorney general elected, and he or she gets to run as many times as they want. As long as the people continue to elect them, they can keep running. There's no limit. But yeah, here in the House, there's no limit. Um, we serve 2 years per term. Ma'am, you have questions? Yeah.
Um, it's a more personal question, but as a part of the legislature, do you have any future plans to improve the NMI in any sort of way?
That's a very good question, and I don't take that personally. But yeah, it's a very good question. What we were trying to do here is improve the CNMI in as many ways as we can. Despite the challenges, even in the way, like I mentioned earlier about the budget, we try to craft that bill as fairly as possible so that the public services provided to the best of the government's ability to serve the public. So there are many ways we are trying to improve things in the CNMI. We've looked at ways to try to decrease the cost of fuel. Um, we've amended certain laws to allow certain established businesses like our hotels and all that to extend their lease so they can continue to stay here and also provide the economic activity that they have provided. Um, we're looking at ways to generate revenue to continue to fund scholarships and all the vital public services that we can. Unfortunately, there are things being in the middle of the ocean. There are things that happen around the world that's beyond our control, such as the pandemic or when storms hit and all that. We've been very fortunate to have the help from uh, the U.S. government, our federal partners, to help get us back up on our feet. So yes, there are many ways we're trying to to take the approach to improve the livelihood in the CNMI in all aspects, from infrastructure to education and even government operations. I know sometimes it looks like not much is being done, but it takes time, and we are doing our best. Members, you want to add? Yes.
And just to add to that, there's a lot of external factors. So a lot of the decisions that are made in DC, for example, in our situation back in 2008, I think probably the year you guys were born, right? They took over immigration, and that really affected our ability to be self-sustaining economically, because now who enters into the cinema is determined by the decisions made in DC. It's not that the decisions we made here in the CNMI. So financially, it probably took away over probably like 30 to 40 million dollars of economic activity from the CNMI when they took over immigration. And then on top of that, we also had the textile industry here in the CNMI, which way before you guys' time. Back in 1998, the World Trade Organization had made a decision to open up free trade, which allowed South America and China to produce textile stuff. So it made us non-competitive to the rest of the world. So that took away an industry from the CNMI. So those are external factors that affects us economically. We need to get back on the table and sit with our federal partners and start talking about like 902 negotiations. We need to be very active with that, and I believe that you students should be very informed with our 902 talks. And then on top of that, we should be really informed of our covenant, because our covenant is a contractual agreement that no other territory of the U.S. has. We're the only territory that has a covenant agreement. We were created by law through a covenant. It was a contractual agreement between the United States and the CNMI. So that's a lot of authority that we have compared to other territories. So I hope that the class will be learning more about our covenant, I think that's one of our biggest failure, especially for our generation.
Mhm.
We didn't have NMI history and at this level, so the covenant was being taught later on in our school years, and that's difficult because that's a very strong document that we can use for everybody in the cinema, not just the people that they call NMDs, because NMD is not defined as only the two entities that are considered indigenous to the cinema. Oh, thanks, Speaker.
Thank you, Vice. Yeah,
So
go ahead.
NMD by definition was created by a date.
Yep.
So anybody that was in the cinema in 1951, whatever nationality, is considered NMD.
NMD, yes.
So a lot of people they're mistaken that the NMDs are only Chamorros and Carolinians. We actually have NMDs that are Marshallese, Pohnpeians, Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, Filipinos,
Filipinos, yeah.
Palauans. So the NMD definition is broader in perspective. There's an assumption that it only is defining Northern Marianas Descent as Chamorros and Carolinians. That's not true. NMD is a date specific. So 1951 is a date that created the definition of NMD, which is everybody that was in the cinema on that date of 1951. I don't know the exact month and day of the month, but it's the year of 1951.
Yep. Yep. And just to add also to your question, ma'am, on an individual level as representatives, we have our own community projects as well. Um, some of us build bus stops, some of us rehabilitate, recreational areas such as basketball courts. Some of us have open community centers. Some of us have, donated supplies and sporting goods to different schools and centers around the island to have other activities, extracurricular activities for not just the people in our community, but also for the youth as well. So, any other questions? Yeah, yeah. Okay, go for it. Yeah.
What was your motivation to be part of the legislator?
That's a very good question. Again, for me, it was more like a calling. When I moved back to Saipan, I started out as an educator. Um, and then I saw the opportunity to get into the government, and I spent 4 years at the Department of Commerce, and it was in there. And even as my time as an educator, where I saw that I could, provide, serve my community in a higher capacity. More so when I was at the Department of Commerce, we were dealing with a lot of legislation that, of course, affect investment, the economy, and as Vice Speaker Atau mentioned, when we lost the control of our immigration, that was during my time there at Commerce as well. So we were looking at different legislations and policies to help ease that transition. And coincidentally, at the time, I was uh, part of my job there at Commerce was to also review legislation that affects our department. And I would have some meetings with the vice speaker. Well, then he was a legislative assistant, um, drafting and researching bills and laws. And so it was through that experience that led me to the legislature. As I mentioned earlier, for me, I stumbled on that uh, opportunity, and I felt it was a calling for me to step up, and I took the opportunity, and I've been very fortunate that the people of the CNMI, uh, more specifically the people of Precinct 3, has given me that opportunity then and continue to give me the opportunity now. Colleagues, do you want to add? Okay.
That's a good question. I think it's like what speaker had mentioned. It's a calling, but for a lot of people, it's for different reasons. I didn't go to school here in Saipan in junior high or high school, or I'm in college, obviously. But I always wanted to be back home. I never really wanted to be in politics. My whole family's been in politics. I didn't want to get involved. I was more more keen in getting into investments and businesses, and that's where I got my degree. I got my degree in business management and human resource. I came back and started working for the largest employer at the time, which is Tan Holdings, and I was very interested in trying to become a general manager for one of the hotels here in Sinamai. But at the end of the day, that work and that title of business or that degree that says business, it's just politics. It's just spelled different, and that's what made it so easy to understand the process in business is because I grew up around the political stuff, and there's a lot of politics when it comes to business. And I wanted to give back to the community. When I left the Sinamai, there was a little bit of upgrades. Imagine that I left in '89, came back in 2002. There's some upgrades, but nothing drastic that would have provided for the generation a little before you guys compared to what we got. So that was the goal. I started working up here in the legislature as a legislative assistant to understand laws and the process of a lot of stuff, just so when I do decide to run for office, I'm well aware of past laws, hopefully potentially current laws, future laws that can benefit you guys' generation. I don't know if we've gotten to that point yet. It's not. It's a never-ending process, but we want to give something for your generation that was way better than our generation, so that you guys can take that and build on that for those after you guys, maybe your kids, your grandkids in the future. That's the my calling for this, and I enjoy it. I enjoyed this way more than I enjoy the external parts of this job. The job in here, it's like school. It's a learning process every day, and getting to meet you guys is the joy of this job, and to be able to provide for you guys. Everything else is just icing on the cake for me. It's a difficult job, but it's fun at the same time because you can never satisfy everybody. But the goal to try to get to that 100% satisfaction is the driving force, and that's it for me. It's that's simple but difficult if you think about it. Thank you.
We actually encourage clapping. So no, I'm kidding. Good morning. It's so great to see you guys here, and we're happy to answer your questions. And I just want to say that this is probably one of the best parts of our job is to talk with students because our job we smile a lot, but there's a lot on our plate, and we do get our fair share of criticism. Some of it good because constructive criticism is always good, but some of it can be very destructive and hurtful. And this job, you have to have, that saying, you have to have thick skin. So, like sticks and stones may break my bones. That's the kind of thing that we have to deal with. So we're getting ridiculed. Memes are created. We have all these attacks, yet here we are. Um, so before I begin to say why I ran as a legislator, what was behind all of that, I want to tell you something that I share in common with my colleagues here and several others that ran for office. I can tell you why they didn't run. One of the reasons it certainly wasn't for money, and I can say that because when our vice speaker and our speaker and our senator elect, our congresswoman senator elect, ran for office and they won. They actually, and myself, we took a pay decrease. So it was certainly not about money because a lot of times when we hear about jobs, hey, you don't work on this job. One day you can make this much. We knew that coming into this job, there would be financial sacrifice and yet again here we are continuing the work of the people I think my calling to run for office was was to see if I could actually make it, because I have always been very active as a volunteer in the community, and I've also been very vocal in criticizing things that are done by our government leaders. And I'd uh, been told, hey, you know what? You seem to have all the answers. Why don't you try running for office and see how it is? And so I said, sure, why not? And I went out, very small budget, very small committee. We knocked on doors and we asked people for a vote, and they gave me their trust. And it is something that is so humbling and deeply honor. You know, it's there's so much honor at stake that people entrusted you to do the right thing. And so when we came into office, we made a pledge to make sure that we do everything we can to put our people first, not ourselves, but people first, our constituents, you and your family, schools, firemen, police officers, all those things. There have been many opportunities when, we could have easily raised our salaries or done other things, and instead we actually did the opposite. We fought against our salary increases, and who would do that? Well, we did, because public service, they say it is a calling. Maybe it's not, but once you set your mind to it, and once you look at all the wonderful things you can do, you know, you're going to start to realize that there's a limit to what you can do, because we have a budget, right? And this budget that we have has to be enough to make sure that things are still moving, that we still have things going in place. And that's been part of a challenge with all of us. I mean, often when it comes to the budget, there's debate. How much should this department get? And they come and they present and they want, we need $10 million. Okay, well, we'll give you four, whatever, right? But it's a give and take, and and that's the challenges that we have, because in this legislature, this body, we debate. We sometimes get into heated debates, sometimes argue. You guys argue, right, with your friends? Sometimes you have debates, right? But at the end of the day, we try to maintain that respect and decorum for each other, and try to understand where we're coming from, but to get into this office, honestly, I think any of you could do it, and I think you would be great leaders, because you already have the foundation. You're building this great education, and you have great teachers and a great school and a great family that's instilling you core values. And I hope one day to see you guys to think about that. Maybe consider running for office. Maybe you'll come knocking on our door and asking for a vote. And maybe you can say, hey, remember, you were talking with us. I didn't really listen to what you had to say, but I remember you. But nonetheless, guys, students, we are grateful that you came today, and that you shared your morning with us. And we're happy to be here. And thank you so much.
Thank you again. As my colleagues have mentioned, we all share very similarly the reason for running. For me personally, I didn't even think I would be here where I am now. I had zero interest in politics, and like Rep Babauta, sorry, Ato, jeez, Ato. I too was gone from Saipan. I moved away after junior high, and I've been gone from Saipan for over 20 years. And in my 20 years, my focus was in my career, and that was in finance and accounting. And so I had no interest in politics whatsoever. And so my family and I decided to move to Saipan to help his parents. And I thought I would be here 1 year, 2 years at the most. But here I am today, still here after 7 years. And so, like my colleagues, I felt it was a calling. I was the budget officer at CUC for 4 years, making lots of money. And one day I just was reading the paper and felt the need to give my time and service to our people and help in any way that I can to improve um, our our islands. You know, give back, pay it forward. Everything that I've earned through my career, every single person who has helped me climb up that corporate ladder, I wanted to see if I could give back to our community. And so I decided out of nowhere to just throw my name out there and run for office. And I would have to say that the first time I ran in 2020, I didn't make it. I was short by like 39 votes. But an opportunity came up right after the election last year. An unfortunate event happened, and our late Congressman Ivan Blanco passed away sometime in July, I believe. And that opened up the opportunity once again for me to throw my name out there. And through the grace of our Lord and the blessings of our people in Precinct 3, they have given me this opportunity to be elected. So now here I am, serving our people and our community. And it's a very humbling experience. It's nothing that I expected. It has nothing to do with my degree or the experiences that I've gained throughout my career. But like them, the part that I enjoy the most is being able to talk to people like you, talking to our community and seeing how we can help better our economy, our healthcare, our safety. There's so many things that are happening out there that that you just there's so much work to do, and there's so little time that are given to us. 2 years is you would think 2 years is a long time, but it's really not. It's a very short period of time to get a lot of things accomplished. So um, like the speaker said, it's something that you have to be passionate about and be able to look beyond the pay scale, which is $32,000 a year. Hopefully, by the time you guys are of age and ready to run, the salary would be better, more competitive. But yeah, some of us were willing to take the sacrifice financially, right, and make that leap. So I hope that when you guys get that opportunity, when you get to that age, that you would consider running for office. I'm sure there are things out there that sometimes you might not even realize when you say, "Gosh, you know, I wish the law was this and not that." Well, when you become a lawmaker, those are the opportunities that you can make changes on. I'm sure there's so many. By the time your generation gets to that point, that times will change, and there are things that need to be. Laws that need to be changed as well. So please do consider. I would like to encourage all our females in the room to please take some leadership role. When you grow up, and uh, be impactful and give meaning back to our community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
So I have a question on the voting.
Yes.
So how does the voting works for any representative, officers, or mayor?
Like when we vote on bills here, is that okay?
Yeah.
So we each get one vote each. But as the speaker, in the event that there's a tie, I have the opportunity to vote twice to break the tie. So that's how it goes. There are certain bills or legislation that require more than the simple majority, right? So, like if you're in a class and say you guys are going to decide on a field trip, and your teacher's like, "All right, how many people, how many of you want to go to the governor's office?" And say there's 20 of you, and only 9 vote yes, and the 11 vote no, then I guess that's what it's going to be, right? The no's have it. So same here in the House. When there's a bill and it's going to be voted on, in order for it to pass, there's 20 members, so at least um, 11 members have to vote yes for it to pass, or no for it to get killed or not pass. In the event that the legislation is very important and it's a 10-10 split, um, the speaker has the privilege to vote twice to break that tie. But yeah, even like right now, we're in what we call the lame duck session. So anything that deals with appropriation has to get 2/3 of the vote. So that's there's 20 of us, so that's 14, right? Excuse my math, but 2/3 of 20 is 14. Okay, I was hoping one of you guys would answer that, right? So yeah, that's how the vote works. If you're talking about being elected, then like I mentioned, there's on Saipan, there's 5 different election districts, so you can only vote for, if you're going to vote for members of the House, you can only vote for those that are in your precinct. So say, for example, you live in Garapan and you're a registered voter in precinct 3, you can only vote for candidates that are running in precinct 3. The senators, they're island-wide. The governor is CNMI wide. The attorney general is CNMI wide. The U.S. delegate to U.S. Congress, Congressman Kilili's position, that's CNMI wide as well. Did that answer your question, sir? Okay, thank you. Good question, by the way. Yes, ma'am. Oh, not you? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
How long does it usually take to pass a bill, like through the House of Representatives?
Oh, okay. It really depends. For example, like I brought up the budget bill because that's very time sensitive. We have a deadline of October 1st to have it signed into law. And the process goes, the governor has until April to submit a proposal to the House. If he needs an extension, he can request and he gets another month extension. But that bill can take months because what's this? There's just so much to give, and not so much to give, but not so much to give. And you're going to have to try to divide it as fairly as possible. So there's really a lot that goes into the budget process. And again, depending on the importance of the bill, if it's like an emergency has come up in the CNMI, like for example, when a typhoon hits and we need to ease the procurement regulations for a little bit, just so we can get more supplies and more vendors, we can do that, and we can have a limited time for that bill or that law to last. So it really does depend. There are some bills that, for whatever reason, can take the whole term to pass. One of the first bills I've ever had became law when that term almost ended, and that was more than 2 years just to get out of the legislature. And that bill had to deal with underage drinking and updating the law when it comes to underage drinking. Good question. Any other questions? Ma'am, you had a question? Okay. Sir? No? No? Yes, sir.
As a member of House of Legislature, is there one thing that you think it should be like improved more?
In the legislature, or well, there's so many things that needs to be improved in the community. And depending on the resources, that's how far we can take it. So there's always things to improve, whether it's government operations, infrastructure, our healthcare. There's always things to improve, and that's why we continue to do what we do. Colleague, do you want to add?
Can you just elaborate a little bit on your question?
No, I think yeah.
But he pretty much answered that, but just, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. It's a good question. It is a very good question. His question was, as a member of the legislature, what was that again?
Is there like any specific thing that you wanted to be like improved?
Oh, any specific thing that we would like to be improved? Oh, okay.
Within the legislature.
Yep.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's a really tough question.
Yeah.
Because we try not to think of ourselves.
Yeah.
Of all the big problems that are happening outside of this place, but if there is something, I think it'd be important for the legislative bureau positions to be more more permanent in a sense.
Yeah.
Maybe not the professional positions, just because lawyers would take bigger opportunities and would open private firms to make more money. But that and possibly controlling the finances, because we have our money, but it still has to go to finance for approval, for expenditure approval.
And then there are things that we have improved here in the House thanks to the Legislative Bureau. When I first came into office, we didn't have this kind of access really, where you can watch us on Facebook or YouTube. I think we only had one camera in the middle, and it goes around. Now, if you watch us on YouTube, I could be asking a question, and there could be a small frame that shows the person that addressed the question to me. So there could be like how many split screens. We didn't have that before. We have improved in our Wi-Fi connection. So some members that are from Rhoda or say they cannot make it to the session for whatever reason, they can attend virtually, whether it's through their phone, as long as they're in the CNMI and we have a session, they're counted as present. So we've made some improvements there. We were also able to, in the past couple years, to finally hire professionals that look into the fiscal, our fiscal analysts to help us with, dissecting the budget and the CNMI's financial situation and how we can improve moving forward. So within the legislature, we've made some improvements. Of course, with, like I mentioned, external factors that we have no control over, like the pandemic. For a while, the legislature was openly accessible. But for a while, just like the stores and restaurants, you had to check in, you had to wear masks. Now, because of, threats like that, we've upgraded our security. We try not to be too restrictive because this is a public office, and you, being members of the public, should be able to access this public office as much as possible. So we've made some improvements here. So good questions. Very good questions.
And just to add, sorry, Steve.
Yes.
Just to add, one of the major improvements too, right, is the accessibility of information. So
Mhm.
you can go to the legislature's website and access current laws that are just passed or even pending laws, right, that
Mhm.
we've already
Yep.
introduced but have not passed yet. So there's a lot of accessibility to information
Mhm.
nowadays compared to maybe 10 years
Yeah,
ago,
yep.
right? So those are some of the improvements that the legislature have made.
Mhm.
So any one of you, if you have access to the internet, you can just go on the website and see what laws we have on there, even
Mhm.
going back as far as
Yep.
like years ago.
Yeah.
So that's quite an improvement from during
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah. We're trying our best to keep up with the technology too. So I know I mentioned the fiscal analyst to help us with looking through the finances. We also hired a few IT staff. We have Mr. Delbert here. Of course, they handle the whole YouTube and the recordings and other technical issues that we have here in the legislature. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, what are these screens for?
Okay, these are so that when we're in session and like say somebody wants to work on changing a bill, we put it up here so everybody can see the changes as it's happening. We also have this so that people watching from the gallery, they can see. And that's why we have this screen up here for. So even when, like, say we're discussing something and then somebody brings up, section 2 whatever from the Constitution, and then the legal counsel can bring it up from there, and it'll show on this screen so that we don't have to worry about, oh my God, oh my goodness, I don't have a copy of the Constitution with me. Like, it'll be there, and it's pretty much almost like real time. So it'll help you to follow. And then also when we're, like I mentioned, some members, if they cannot make it to the session physically, they can attend virtually. So they'll show up here, and yeah, so we can watch them as just like they're watching us. So that's what the screens are for.
You also use them for presentations. So
Yes.
Like some government agencies or nonprofit organizations, when they come in and want to provide
Yeah.
us some information or just do a presentation, the screens are used for their like PowerPoints and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So that those sitting here can look here, those, yep. Same with the TV screen out there. Yes, we have cable, but those are also accessible for things that are happening here in the session. Yeah. Yeah. Channel 23. Yep. Yeah. Any more questions? Go ahead. Go ahead. Good questions, by the way.
Just so you know, there's no such thing as a bad or dumb question, okay? Just so if you're feeling scared to ask.
Yeah. One thing that's really good about living in a small community is the access you have to a lot of things that you will normally not have access to when you live in a bigger community. To have the opportunity to come up to the legislature like this, I don't think it's that easy if you're living in a big city, or to even meet your own representatives like this. It's not that it's not possible in the States, but it's very possible here. So take advantage of this opportunity. If you'd like, you can invite us to your classrooms too. And yeah. Yes.
Do we currently have any laws on like cyberbullying?
No, or I can't. Vice Speaker, do you know if we have any? Do you know if we have any laws on cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying, we've introduced a couple in the last few legislatures, but it's happened not past the Senate. But
Yeah.
that's definitely something. We have something in the books, but it's not clear. We were trying to clarify it even better, so that there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now
Mhm.
over the last couple of years that
Yeah.
have been addressed by that bill. That's something that we'll probably be reintroducing in the 23rd legislature. That and another bill, which is the oh man, I forget the name, but
Yeah.
it'll be out there.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
I bring that up because I think in today's timeline, especially with your generation, you guys have maybe most of you, if not all of you, have access to social media and stuff like that. And so I know in other places, I'm pretty sure Saipan too, some people are experiencing cyberbullying. And so that's definitely something that we need to really take into consideration and make it a priority to help protect our youth, from any experiences like that. And so, like they were explaining earlier, there's this program for a youth congress. When you guys get to that next year or even this year, don't ever be afraid. Or we are accessible at any time. You can come to the office. You can reach us by email, or like I said, if you guys have social media, I think most of us have social media accounts. You can always message us through there and let your concerns be heard. If you have any ideas or recommendations that you would like to include in that bill, please feel free to share. But I know that it's an important issue that we need to address to help protect, your generation and future generations.
Right on. Thank you, Representative Magofnia. Feel free to follow her on TikTok and Instagram. I'm just kidding. All right, we'll take. I was just informed that you will be taking a tour soon, and you have another stop. So I'll take one more. We'll take one more question. Okay, sir. Go ahead.
What's the name of the YouTube channel?
For our home. It's yeah just go ahead and if you have the time to get on YouTube, just type in CNMI House of Representatives or CNMI Legislature. I think we're live right now on YouTube, right? So I don't know if some of you can see the screen over here. That's what it's looking like right now on YouTube. So there, I hear myself. Right on.
There we are.
Yeah.
Live on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's if you go to YouTube, the title is 221213 Grace Christian Academy Visitation.
Yep.
Yes. So we're live right now.
Yeah. That's the delayed feedback. All right. Any more questions? We're good? Are we good? All right. Thank you very much. And before you take the tour, is it okay if we take a group photo? All right. Thank you all.
Hi.